Hello everybody and welcome to the ThePackHub's latest Sustainable Packaging Innovations webinar. My name is Paul Jenkins, Managing Director of ThePackHub, joined today by Barrington, Pamplin, as always our Technical Director, and also delighted to be joined by Mauro Cozzi, Co-Founder and CEO of Emitwise. With COP26 in Glasgow recently, marked a step forward in our global efforts to address the tragic climate change situation we're under. So Emitwise is unique technologies bang on trend and empowers companies to drive emission cuts through their operations supply chain. So we're looking forward to hearing more from Mauro and his solutions later on in the presentation. So what are we going to cover today? First of all, we're going to have just 60 seconds on the ThePackHub and our Innovation Zone platform. And then we're going to split some interesting packaging innovations from the platform into two sections. So we'll do a few in the first part. We'll then hear from Mauro, accounting for carbon in packaging innovation. And then we'll split into the second part of the sustainable packaging innovations. We'll then have details of our next event. And as always, please get your questions in. We do have a Q&A section at the end of this session. There is opportunity at the bottom of the panel of Zoom to get your questions in. So we look forward to hearing from you about that. You will get a link to this webinar recording post-event via email and all sort of contact details and any other information you should require. And please feel free to follow the ThePackHub's YouTube channel, youtube.com/ThePackHub, where we have all our content, our webinars, as well as our video interviews with key packaging stakeholders. So a little bit about the ThePackHub for those of you that are new to us. I know we have plenty of regular people that have attended our webinars in the past, so I'll keep this nice and short. 4 areas of expertise: technical support and project management. We do events and obviously webinars. Packaging reports. Our most recent one has been the Global Packaging Trends Compendium. Our next one will be on the plastics challenges. And we also have a leading packaging innovation database platform, which is called the Innovation Zone, searchable and easy to use database. 5,635 specifically packaging innovations on the platform and counting. We've recently increased the number of innovations that we're uploading from 20 to 25 every week, so effectively 5 every working day. They're from around the world, a real global view from concept to in-market launch, a really good way of keeping you and your team up to speed, get those ideas in, find out what your competition are doing and keep inspired. Number of brands and retailers and suppliers are part of the platform. And really everything we do is related to our Innovation Zone platform and really understanding what the global packaging trends are. So as I mentioned just a moment ago, we recently published a Global Packaging Trends Compendium, which summarized the 9 sort of packaging trend clusters, if you like. Now, I'm not going to go into these in too much detail, but what I'm trying to do is put into a bit of context the significance of sustainability in terms of the number of innovations that we're tracking. And if you sort of drill that down, 4 of those trends: naturally done, refill revolution, materially changed, and recycling resurgence, are all very much about recycling, about sustainability. And I think of the innovations that we tracked this year, 75% of them are to do with sustainability, which is perhaps not surprising. So the first section, Sustainable Packaging Innovations You Need to Know, Part 1. So these are all recent introductions to our platform, really over the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks. As always, a bit of a caveat, really. This is not an endorsement or examples necessarily of best practice, but the purpose of this session is to reflect what's going on in the market. So some of these initiatives may not be in line with your company policies in terms of what you're trying to achieve from a sustainability point of view, but we think it's important to reflect what's going on in the market so you can make your own calls in terms of what you might be doing in your business. So the first one up is Unwrapped Bars, which is an energy bar manufacturer based in Edinburgh. They were inspired by the returnable, refillable glass milk bottle model of yesteryear, and they are offering their energy bars in 100% reusable packaging. That is certainly a first for the innovation zone. We've not seen anything quite like this before. The scheme works in the following way. The customer buys a box of 6 bars. The bars come in wraps, which are made of organic cotton coated with beeswax. When consumed, the empty wrappers are returned to unwrapped bars, which are then thoroughly cleaned. The wraps are recorded so the customers always get their own wraps back. The wraps are supplied by another small business, Queen Bee Wraps, also based in the Edinburgh area close to unwrapped bars. The beeswax for the wraps is supplied by their own bees and is said to be naturally antibacterial in its own right. Unwrapped bars, OT Original Bar is based on a classic flapjack recipe, and a box of 6 bars will set you back £22 or £16 if customers take out a subscription. So I recently posted that on LinkedIn and got a lot of interest in the packaging community, some positive and more critical comments about how this is moving the game forward, and whether returnable, reusable wraps is better than recyclable and things like that. So as I said, these aren't the perfect answers. I'm just reflecting what's going on in the market. But I thought it was quite an interesting and distinctive solution that we hadn't quite seen before. Next up is tool manufacturer Steel France, and they're changing their protective packaging for its garden tools from a crumpled craft paper effect, which you will have seen quite regularly if you buy any e-commerce packaging products, to hay. The hay, which provides the mechanical protection needed to transport the products, can then be used, they're suggesting, for bedding for animals, to make decorative objects perhaps, or be reused again to protect another package. And of course, it's obviously compostable. The business states that nearly 3/4, 72% of customers claim to have reused the hay packing material. The hay comes from a farm located just 10 kilometers, so 6 miles from the logistics center in France, which from a carbon emissions point of view is better than transporting craft paper that comes in most cases from Northern Europe paper mills. The move has been well received by consumers, with 98% apparently approving of the change. Using hay also has turned out to be a more cost-effective route than using craft, as it is reported to be, in this case, 34% cheaper. So what's not to love about that in terms of cost savings and environmental benefits? Next up is what is claimed to be a world first paper cup created for paper tubes. So there's been an ongoing developments reported in our innovation zone to improve the recyclability of tubes of various formats. However, the caps that accompany them are perhaps a little left behind in terms of optimizing their end-of-life design, but not in this case. Swedish manufacturer of paper cores, tubes, bobbins and cylindrical packaging, Scandicor, have collaborated with Polpack to create what is reported to be the world's first caps for paper tubes that are made of paper themselves. Polpack's dry molded fiber technology is patented and is available to be licensed to producers through the Polpack modular standardized machine platform, available at their tech center for sample and bridge volume production. Dry molded fiber products boast high physical strength combined with efficient use of water and energy, as well as substantial reported reductions of CO2. The cap is expected to reach consumers in the first half of this year via a number of Europe's leading online stores. Now, recycling has been or continues to be a really significant area for obvious reasons. We've got the plastic packs around the world, which is part of a major part of that is 100% recyclable packaging by 2025. We've got the UK packaging tax coming in April, which is encouraging or penalising any plastic packaging with less than 30% recycled content. So consequently, we're seeing a tremendous amount of, as you would expect, recycled and recyclable initiatives coming to the fore. What we're also seeing is sort of new technologies being tried and tested to see how they can improve the efficacy of the recycling process. So in here we have a US business called Magnamore, who are the developers of a special ink technology, allowing for the easier and more efficient separation of shrink labels from PET in the recycling process. Called Magmark SS, the ink is used in the shrink labels to magnetize them, meaning they can be seamlessly pulled from the PET flakes in the recycling process using a magnetic pulley structure. This is reported to have a 99.5% accuracy. The inks reportedly do not interfere with optical salt or magnets in the material recycling facilities, the MRFs, and front-end reclaimer operations. They are bleed resistant and are designed to survive caustic washing. The company has, obviously this has been development, but they've already secured partnership pilots with the likes of PepsiCo and Fuji Seal. So watch this space with interest on that one. We've now got a couple of sort of commitment pledges, if you like, so policy announcements really from a couple of big players. So the first one, as you can see, is from Coca-Cola, and they've announced that the business aims to make 25% of its beverage packaging reusable by 2030. So that's quite a, that's obviously 8 years away and quite a long time to get to that point. But in order to achieve this goal, they will package their products in returnable glass or plastic bottles, or alternatively in refillable containers, in a nod to the past when actually reusable containers like this in beverage market was actually quite common. At present, returnable glass bottles and refillable PET account for more than 50% of the company's product sales in more than 20 markets, and I was quite surprised by that high figure. In 2020, Coca-Cola's traditional refillable and returnable packaging represented around 16% of its total volume. So what they're effectively trying to say, doing is moving from 16% to 25% of their total volume over the next 8 years. Due to the global nature and diversity of the business, they plan to adopt different methods in each market to achieve this goal sensibly. And Coca-Cola states that the use of the reusable packages provides added value for consumers and customers while supporting their World Without Waste goal to collect a bottle or can for every one they sell by 2030. Another policy pledge, if you like, is from Coca-Cola's rivals, really, it's PepsiCo. Their strategic sustainability goals, known as PepsiCo Positive. The business has announced that they will intend to eliminate virgin fossil-based plastic for its crisps and snack bags, again, by 2030. This will include their brands such as Walkers, Doritos, and Lay's. As part of this commitment, they will start trials in France on the Lay's brand, as you can see in the package shown here, with 30% bio-based renewable packaging. Then in the UK later this year, one of the ranges of the Walkers brand will commence trials with recycled content packaging. The content in the packaging will be derived from previously used plastic, and the renewable content will come from byproducts of plants such as used cooking oil or waste from paper pulp. PepsiCo hopes to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by moving to virgin fossil-free materials. Already in the UK, PepsiCo has reduced some of its multi-pack outer packaging by up to 30%. You might have seen that in stores in the UK, using innovative technology in its manufacturing facilities. Next up is we're moving away from sort of a lot of the innovations we show are sort of food and drink and household and health and beauty. This is DIY products, I guess. So this is Kent-based paint manufacturers Yes Colours, and they've chosen to launch their new range of paints in a fully recyclable plastic pouch format. So the move is to try and tackle the amount of waste paint in the UK, which is estimated to be 55 million litres per annum, which sounds a tremendous amount. The paint will be sold in 1 litre pouches so that customers will be able to more accurately gauge how much they require. They claim that the paint pouch alone uses 16% less fossil fuel, generates 21% less greenhouse gas emissions, and uses 26% less water throughout its production than traditional rigid packaging. The pouch is claimed to be more recyclable than a traditional paint tin, as after use, the empty pouches can be placed in local store or supermarket recycling points. Now, I'm not quite sure how consumers are expected to get rid of all the paint in the packaging. Certainly when you have a tin format, there's always a little bit left, which makes it impossible almost to recycle, but the brand is claiming that this is possible. Yes Colours paints are vegan friendly and free from various harmful substances found in some other decorative paints. So there we have that. And last up, before we hear from Mauro Emitwise, and this has been announced in the last few days or so, and many of you may have already seen this and will have a view on the controversy, really. So I think what we have here is, the milk market has changed over the years. Traditionally, home delivered in reusable glass bottles, and sort of really switched to widely recycled HDPE format, which is really the dominant format in many markets now. This format may now be under threat if a UK supermarket rollout of the Tetra Pak cartons gathers momentum. So after successfully trialling reusable glass milk bottles in late 2021, UK supermarket chain Morrison's is now trying something different with a switch to Tetra Pak cartons from HDPE bottles. The cartons come in 9 variations. All are claimed to be fully recyclable and are marketed as carbon neutral by the Carbon Trust. I'm not sure if that is more to do with carbon offsetting than the actual packaging necessarily being carbon neutral. 14 juice products have also made the switch. The move is said to save 100 tonnes a year of plastic waste. Morrison's claim that Tetra Pak has been independently verified as a better sustainable packaging option. We're lacking a little bit of data in terms of sort of LCAs and other factors, but certainly when this was posted on LinkedIn, there was quite a lot of comment from the packaging community, mostly critical of this move. But in conclusion, the supermarket chain has also recently moved some of their fruit juice plastic bottles to cartons, which removes another 678 tonnes of plastic per year. Okay, so that's your first sort of stint of new packaging innovations in part 1. And I'm delighted to introduce Mauro Cozzi, co-founder of Emitwise. And as I mentioned, their unique technology empowers companies to drive emission cuts through their operations and supply chain, enabling businesses to meet carbon targets faster and support the transition to a low carbon economy. But what do I know? I'm sure Mauro can much better explain how his business works and what they do. And over to you, Mauro. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hopefully you should be able to share yours.
Thank you so much, Paul. Can you hear me okay there?
I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Fantastic. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Well, thank you for having me, Paul, and thank you for everyone who's attending. I'm super excited to have the opportunity to present a little bit today about how we see the world at Emitwise and what we work on. And today we'll be speaking about carbon accounting and why we believe that the single metric of carbon emissions or carbon footprint will really drive the bulk of innovation in packaging and in the rest of the economy and the rest of the world over the next decade. My name is Mauro Cozzi. I am one of the co-founders of Emitwise and the CEO of the business. At Emitwise, as Paul has mentioned, we are really focused on building software and technology that helps businesses like all of the companies that you are all working with on a daily basis to profitably cut carbon, to be sustainable in a way that helps drive growth for the business and ultimately power the economy in a green way. We are a CDP Gold accredited provider. We are proud to partner with large technology platforms like SAP and be recognized by leaders like PwC. And we are very focused on the packaging sector, working with companies in your space across the US, the UK, and Europe. Today, I'm here to talk about a single thing, a simple concept, which is that we believe that carbon emissions will be the most important metric, second only to financial performance, to revenue performance for businesses and for the world over the next 10 years and beyond. We see a vision of the world where every time that we see a dollar sign in a business, whether that's on a balance sheet, when we're creating a business case for a new brand or a product line that we believe will be successful in the market, when we're buying a product as a consumer, as we just heard from some of the examples that Paul was talking about, we're going to see carbon footprint labels. always next to those pound signs or dollar signs. And we believe that this transition towards a relentless focus on cutting carbon emissions will have impacts on all of our work, of everybody who's joining today's webinar, and ultimately drive very positive changes for the world. So why do we believe that there will be such a radical focus on carbon footprint reductions? It starts with the very real cost that climate change is already having in tangible ways on the world. And some of it is costs in human life, in quality of living, such as the billions of refugees that we expect to be produced due to the devastating effects of climate-related disasters. The fact that 1 in 10 homes in the US are expected to be affected directly by these disasters. But quite frankly, what we actually see driving investments, driving corporate action, and therefore affecting the work that we all do and that you all do as packaging experts is the fact that it will have a very large financial cost for consumers, for governments, and for businesses in the world. And that's doubled up by the fact that the level of action that is required for the world to meet that Paris Agreement, to stay under 1.5 degrees of warming above pre-industrial levels, is very, very radical. A fact that I think is very important and already forgotten is that the level of carbon reductions that we saw at the peak of COVID in March 2020, when the world came to a halt, when we were all stuck at home, there was no flights going around, global supply chains were grinded to a halt due to disrupted global workforces, when every hotel and restaurant was largely shut down, that when the world paused, that was the level of reductions that the world needed in order to stay on track with the Paris Agreement, with the 1.5 degree target. And what that tells us, if we remind ourselves of the huge financial cost of climate change, that climate inaction will lead to the world, and the level of response that is required, that tells us that we will start seeing a huge response from businesses and investors. And indeed, that is what we're seeing, right? The private equity businesses, for example, BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, that are ultimately investing and driving a lot of the action that our businesses respond to, that the packaging companies that we are working with are responding to, are measuring emissions and demanding carbon reductions. And it's important to remember that all of these different statements all boil down to this one single number, which is the carbon footprint of a business, of a product, of everything that we do on our day-to-day lives. That's leading to large and widespread commitments across the supply chains that we're all parts of, with programs like the Unilever Climate Supplier Program and Walmart's Project Gigaton. And the 2,577 businesses, large companies like the Nestle's of the world, which have signed up to science-based targets initiatives, which ultimately are committing every company in their supply chains to say that they must meet aggressive carbon reduction targets. And again, this all boils down to the single number, which is the carbon footprint per product, per invoice that a business is ultimately producing. And this is all, of course, driven by that growing consumer demand, which everybody in the packaging sector has been experiencing for so long, right? We know that 78% of UK adults want to see more sustainable packaging, and specifically 2/3 of consumers want to see carbon footprint labeling. And it's these levels of trends that make us think that, quite simply, over the next 10 years, we will see a shift towards a world where every time we see dollars or pound signs somewhere on a balance sheet, on a product label, on a business case, on a financial analysis of a new product line that a companies are going to be investigating, the carbon footprint number associated with that initiative or product will be second only to the financial metric. And some of the other metrics that people in this call, I'm sure, are involved with, such as recyclability, energy efficiency, will be really all measured under the lens of that carbon footprint label. So what does that mean specifically to you all as experts and people working in and around the packaging sector? First of all, as we all know, carbon is already a key performance indicator, a key metric, a key driver for packaging. And it's not surprising, given that packaging materials on its own produces more global emissions than shipping or logistics. We all know that the leading packaging businesses that you are all engaged with have been driving sustainability and at the forefront of sustainability, far ahead of many other industries, in fact, over the last couple of decades. And that's why we see already exciting things such as that half of businesses across the US and the UK are already working to reduce their carbon footprint. 20% of them specifically have net zero targets, the specific types of science-based targets that these businesses need in order to actually align with the Paris Agreement, to avoid the worst of climate change, those billions of refugees, those trillions of dollars of economic damage. And eventually, when we talk to the companies at the frontier of sustainable and innovative packaging, we know that what they're working towards is a world where they can have hyper accurate carbon footprint labels on every single bit of packaging. Very interesting comment from Paul on the previous presentation, talking about Morrison's and the Tetra Pak packaging and whether the carbon neutrality is associated with offsets or the actual components of the packaging. Those are questions that we expect to see growing very rapidly for the packaging sector in particular. And the good news is that you are all, of course, already at a very great place to capture this opportunity and to turn it into an advantage. And when we think specifically about the different kinds of people that are in this call and involved in the packaging sector, from brand owners to technologists and innovators, to procurement folks and people in retail, it really boils down to the fact that, you know, as we're already seeing at some scale, over the next 10 years, that CO2e, that carbon emissions equivalent, that carbon footprint becomes a KPI when making any sort of decision, whether that's choosing a new material, deciding where to source from, driving a new product innovation, a new product line, making marketing statements. Carbon will be always top of the line, only second to financial performance. There will be an increasing focus on making sure that your initiatives, your product lines, all specifically tally up towards the organization's carbon reduction target, and ultimately to the carbon reduction target that your own customers are demanding from you. And therefore, there will be a need for full value chain wide collaboration and engagement in the way of data sharing and really working very closely together so that everything that you do is optimizing for that carbon footprint label. So I wanted to, you know, touch base on something that I'm sure all of you are very aware of, and do a quick reminder of how carbon accounting actually works, how when the businesses you're part of say, you know, hey, our business is going to be net zero by 2040. How are they actually measuring that? And ultimately, therefore, how does the work that you do on a day-to-day basis ultimately drive towards that number, whether it's cutting your carbon emissions by 50% over the next 10 years or reaching net zero in a similar time horizon? Carbon accounting is quite simply a process of gathering data and through a rigorous scientific process, interpreting that data under the lens of its carbon equivalent. In the world of, you know, trying to boil this as much as possible to the things that are most relevant to you all, it really comes down to looking at what are we buying in the way of materials, services, what energy are we utilizing in our manufacturing processes, what kind of waste are we producing, and gathering all of the data that we have from our organization around this, complementing that with any missing data, such as modeling of, for example, what is the end of life related emissions of our products when they are either composted or taken to a recycle facility, or perhaps simply taken into landfill. And using that scientifically based a carbon factor, the sort of output understanding of what's the environmental impact of all of those different inputs of materials and processes to inform decisions ultimately, right? To tell us whether we should use one material over another, engage with one supplier over another, or launch one particular product line over another. And ultimately to be able to show the world that the actions that we are taking as a department, as a product, as a business, as an individual, are contributing towards the carbon targets of my business and ultimately of the supply chains that we're all a part of. So as you can see, As experts in the packaging sector, as people who are making decisions day in, day out about the next generation of packaging products, whether you are somebody who is making procurement decisions, a retailer buying packaging, or you are a packaging technologist creating the next generation of product lines, you are in the best position to drive net zero, because the packaging industry is a high producer of carbon emissions, but you're one of the most advanced industries when it comes to being in a good position to entirely decarbonize everything that you do. So we're very excited about the position that you are all in, and our thesis that carbon will become as important as a KPI to the world, second only to financial performance, because we see a world where we can take the rapid action that we need in order to meet the Paris Agreement, meet the targets of the world, avoid the worst of climate change, help the businesses that we work with make a lot of money for themselves and for their investors, and ultimately drive benefit and climate action to everybody that needs it across the world. Thank you very much for listening today. I hope I've inspired you to double down on your sustainability initiatives because they will lead to a great positive outcome. And I would welcome any questions at all that you have for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will be taking questions. We're just going to do the next section of the packaging innovations summary. So let me just share my screen again. And yes, we'll have some questions in about 10 or 15 minutes time. So sustainable packaging innovations that you need to know, part 2. So first up is we're seeing a lot of biodegradable and compostable packaging come to market as part of the plastic packs. One of the 3 elements of that directive is the introduction of compostable packaging. So clearly that is driving some brands to move into this area. So what we have here is German-based supermarket chain Norma, and they're moving their own brand Excelsior Magic Chocolate premium chocolate range to a bioplastic wrapper. The new packs will use the familiar cellulose-based Natureflex from Futomura. Natureflex is designed to be a direct replacement for fossil-based plastics and can be processed using the same form, fill and seal equipment. As Natureflex is a bioplastic, it does not need to be disposed of in the plastic waste stream and can be safely recycled in a household composter. Natureflex is said to have the following properties suitable for confectionery applications: high water vapor, gas and aroma barriers, strong seals, excellent printability, gloss and clarity. The new packaging will be used on the brands Almond Magic, Biscuit Dream and Hazelnut Poetry 100-gram bars. Norma will have stores across Germany, Austria, France and the Czech Republic. Next up is also another German initiative from BASF, and they've launched a new label adhesive that does not interfere with the recycling of paperboard or corrugated board shipping cases. So I mentioned earlier about initiatives that improve the recyclability of packaging. So the 2 new adhesives, and these type of products are always given sort of long-winded technical names. So this is Acronol RCF 3705 and 3706 are designed to be easily removed early in the recycling process for paperboard and cardboard streams. Both adhesives have been certified by the German Research and Service Institute, PTS, as not interfering with the recycling of transport boxes. Due in part to the global pandemic, the market for shipping labels in the e-commerce sector is now stated by BASF as the fastest growing area for labels, not surprisingly, and these now account for 15% of the demand for labels in Europe. Refill sachets. So we're seeing lots of initiatives that essentially take water out of the supply chain. So Dial is a US brand owned by Henkel that focuses on hand washing and body care products. And they've launched a concentrated hand wash refill that mixes with water obtained at home to make a full-size bottle of their dial foaming hand wash. It is reported to use 95% less plastic. The cartons are also made with 100% paper-based cardboard, and the sachets are recyclable through Dial's partnership with TerraCycle. The refill sachets come in packs of 3, which make up 3 full bottles. Carbon emissions are reportedly reduced by 85% through using refills compared to standard bottles, via its partnership with Plastic Bank, TerraCycle, and Utrecht-based Solidaridad, 3 like-minded organisations whose mission is reported to create a more sustainable future. Dial is supporting a circular economy in collaboration with Plastic Bank. Dial will help save over a reported 30 million plastic bottles from entering the ocean in this calendar year. So quite some significant numbers there. So as I said, we're seeing lots of initiatives, sort of refill type, very much in the refill packaging trend area, taking water out of the supply chain, which has obvious benefits in terms of packaging reduction, weight reduction, etc. Morrison's get another look in our summary this month. So they've announced that they're also introducing 100% plastic-free packaging for its eco range of kitchen and toilet rolls. Now, we reported 6 or 7 types of moving from plastic spring film type solutions to a paper-based one over the last sort of 12 to 18 months, perhaps. So the rolls and its packaging are produced using fully renewable energy at local sites in the UK, and as paper-based, 100% recyclable, made from responsibly sourced and Forest Stewardship Council FSC certified materials. The paper packaging is fully recyclable and can be collected via curbside recycling. The 2 Morrison's eco products, Eco 2-pack jumbo kitchen towels and Eco toilet roll sheets themselves, are also manufactured from 100% recycled paper. So quite a synergistic solution here. Morrison's say that their eco products are priced at only fractionally more than the standard products, and claim that if people moved to the eco products, 9 tons of plastic would be saved annually. The introduction of paper wrapping for Morrison's toilet and kitchen rolls comes as the company is committed to removing plastic bags for life from their stores in the UK. So Morrison's are very active in a number of different sustainably led areas. Interesting that the consumer is expected to pay a little bit more for the switch from a plastic-based wrap to a paper one. So the UK's number 2 cheese brand, Pilgrim's Choice, has announced that it's moving its grated cheese into fully recyclable packaging. Fully recyclable meaning that via return to store schemes. In partnership with flexible packaging supplier Vipack, their grated cheese will move to a mono material, reducing the pack's carbon footprint by 48%, with a 15% reduction in the amount of packaging used. The new pack will also be fully recycled, as I mentioned, via return to store schemes. So that requires consumer motivation and action to make that a reality. So obviously those recycling rates are nothing like as high as a curbside collection scheme would be. And it's certified by the On-Pack Recycling, the OPRL scheme. The monostructure grated cheese pack retains the same look, feel and functionality of the old pack, whilst meeting the same high demanding requirements of the supply chain, maintaining packaging line speeds and extended shelf life through the inclusion of an EVOH as a gas barrier. The new packs are available in a couple of different sizes, 180 gram extra mature and 150 gram medium grated cheese. So as part of the innovations that we're seeing, lots of one of our trend areas is materially change, and what that really is reflecting is switching from plastic into other materials. So here we have a Finnish bedding brand, which is moving away from conventional fossil-based plastic bags to a more sustainable alternative in its bedding products. And that's what they're claiming. Early in 2022, they started packing their products into Paptic, also manufactured in Finland. Paptic is made from wood fibers, is reusable and recyclable with cardboard and packaging papers. The materials main raw material originates from sustainably managed forests, and the process for manufacturing plastic is almost identical to that used in papermaking and could be made on standard papermaking equipment with a few minor modifications. The materials used to make plastic are available as FSC certified, and the materials are durable, strong, and repel moistures. The pillar bag can be used as a mailer, and the larger quilt bag can also be used for waste sorting or as a laundry bag. So, as I said, the packs are intended to be reused. I'm not sure about the consumer messaging and how much consumers are encouraged to do that. And last up, I continue to mention the large amount of recycled packaging that we're clearly tracking in the innovation zone. And this is a specific type of recycled packaging, which is just worth sort of noting that we're spotting on a more regular basis. So this is British fruit supplier Jupiter Group that have claimed a UK first by collaborating with Sharpak Elsham and the Prevented Ocean Plastic Initiative, so the POP initiative, to supply its 400-gram watermelon and pineapple products in recycled plastic. The new punnets will be first in the UK to include the POP, the Prevented Ocean Plastic Initiative, and divert what is high-quality plastic from entering the ocean. It will be stocked by 2 retailers initially. The POP initiative helps tens of thousands of coastal communities around the world by providing recycling systems where there are no formal facilities. So the initiative ensures that plastic is prevented from entering the ocean and recycled. And of course, collecting plastic before it enters the ocean means that the plastic has much more value as once it spends time in the ocean, it's degraded by salt water and sunlight, making it just pretty much unsuitable for food packaging use. So by preventing it from entering the ocean in the first place, it just makes that plastic a little bit more valuable. So this is a process that obviously prevents plastic into the ocean, but also helps local communities, gives people jobs, and it's good in that sense as well. Okay, so they're the innovations. Hopefully you found them of interest and enjoyed seeing some of the new initiatives that we're tracking in our innovation zone database. I'm now going to ask Barry and Mauro to unmic their microphones, and Barry, if you could lead the Q&A, please.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly on my end.
Yeah, so first question, Mario, which has come through, which was going through my mind as well, is how do you think this is going to work with carbon reduction, with pressure on plastic reduction as well? Because sometimes the solution for lowest carbon will involve plastic rather than plastic removal. Do you think there'll be a shift towards a stronger acceptance of a carbon metric over a plastic reduction policy as well?
Yeah, it's a really good and interesting question, and of course, I think we've all been in the sort of the heart of the storm when it comes to consumers not necessarily understanding that there are benefits to plastic, right? Particularly from a sustainability point of view. Our thesis is that indeed, as there is an increasing pressure to understand what is the actual carbon footprint of products, of initiatives, of materials, there will be also a move towards educating the consumer, and therefore ultimately that if there is a carbon benefit to using plastics over other materials, that they will be justified and ultimately sort of be chosen as the selected option. But that will be a part of a transition that happens over the next decade, not at all overnight.
One of the things, a personal thing that I've sort of noticed, do you see a close correlation between a carbon metric and overall cost, that normally the lowest carbon solution will also attract either the lowest cost or near parity cost in terms of the actual impact on the manufacturer and the supplier?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, right? In many ways, carbon efficiency is synonymous to simply efficiency, right? Reducing carbon means reducing waste material, increasing recyclability and reusability. But we also know as well that there are some lower carbon footprint materials that typically because they are in their younger stages of their lifetime. They have recently been developed, perhaps economies of scale haven't fully kicked in yet, that they're still more expensive, right? And a lot of sustainable material innovation is still, when it comes to unit economics, still more expensive than the alternatives. But we believe we will see a lot more flows of subsidies and the effects of carbon taxing at sort of the lowest levels of a value chain showing up in the ultimate cost of materials, and therefore a move towards, a direct correlation between the cheapest material and the most carbon efficient materials.
Okay. How long a timescale do you see on this? Where do you see the sort of the movement in adopting a more robust carbon measurement system? Do you see this as being in the medium term, long term, short term?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully as soon as possible, right, Barry?
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, obviously companies are setting targets usually to 2030 and to 2050. And in our experience, when we speak with businesses and they have a 2030 target, perhaps just this year, they have really started to talk at the executive level about strategies and the roadmap towards that target. So likely, a couple of years until you start seeing very, very large scale, widespread action. And, from my vantage view, it wouldn't surprise me if part of it feels like a last minute race over the sort of the last parts of this decade, and a ramp up towards that in the next few years.
Given the earlier comments that, and it's something that I believe too, that actually a lower carbon equals a lower total cost as well.
Yeah.
Why are we not traveling faster? What's the roadblocks that are stopping us from getting there quicker? Because I spent the last 30 years as a packaging technologist trying to reduce costs. So what's holding us up?
Oh, Barry, if only I had all the answers to that. I think, part of it is we can't forget that it's only really been over the last few years that we've seen such a step change in the response to climate change, right? In sort of late 2019 is when we really start seeing very, very large global movement. And a lot of it is associated with this idea of finally investors and consumers starting to price it into their own decision making, right?
Yeah.
As well, Barry, of course, some of the answer is quite simply structural, right? There's still a lot of subsidies in oil, and that ultimately shows up on the costs of the underlying materials that we use. So I think it's now a matter of time.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all the questions I've got. I don't know if there's anything from your point of view, Mauro, that you thought of that you'd like to get over with these last sort of couple of minutes of discussion.
No, I'm seeing some questions on the chat, Barry, from James that maybe I'm happy to take very quickly. So I think the first question that James Sweeney put in the chat was that given the huge economic impact of the near global lockdown during COVID, how can we hope to reduce emissions consistently without causing major hardship globally? I think it's a fantastic question, James, and exactly that recognition of just the level of the magnitude of change required is what makes us so bullish that we will see a radical focus on this carbon as a metric in the work that we all do. And really that therefore anything you can do to get ahead of that, if you're a brand owner, if you're procurement, if you're in product R&D, the more you can start thinking about carbon ahead of time, the more it will benefit you and the businesses you work with. Your question is, how can we hope to actually meet those targets without hardship? And my answer is that I believe humanity has always shown that we are ingenious, we are creative, we find solutions to the challenges that we have if we just know what problem it is that we need to solve. And in this case, it is very, very clear the problem we need to solve. We need to drive down carbon emissions. So I think with that, I'm happy to close it on my side, Barry. Thank you very much.
Okay, Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Barry. And thank you, Barry. That was a very interesting session. And I certainly know a lot more about carbon footprint reduction as a consequence. So thank you very much for your time there. Right, so 30 seconds really. Thank you very much for your attention and your attendance today. We really appreciate you supporting us through our webinars. We will be supplying information, including a link to view the webinar in full So you may want to watch it again or share it with your colleagues. As part of that output, we'll have information about Emitwise and the PACHUB. And if you have any questions at all following the webinar that you didn't want to ask live, but you wanted to ask again, just drop me a line following the outputs email, and we'll do our very best to follow that up for you. So our next webinar will be in March, and we will send information about the number of webinars we've got coming up the next few months, including a collaboration with Packaging World starting early March. So we're looking forward to working with them to deliver an international webinar summary for you. So thank you all very much for your time, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.